Okay. Hello, everybody. Oop. Welcome. My timer is giving me a little bit of a problem right now. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining me. So today I'm going to give you an idea of the kind of first game plan for current customers. If you're just looking on immediate tips to do on any campaigns that aren't performing well and kind of how we how we generally like fix campaigns if they're not performing well, like stuff to do. I'm going to cover that first today. My presentation is a high-level view of a number of different topics. Probably the biggest one that you're going to see me discuss today really has to do with the ways in which knowledge graph impacts the success of campaigns. So basically what the biggest story right now, and I'm going to go into that in the presentation, is the fundamentals behind knowledge graph as a source of trust. And the reason that people should know that, especially if you're doing CTRs, it's the number one reason that campaigns are difficult or they get less performance. So I really want to show and explain some of the history on what I've seen and how those methods work best in order to go ahead and do that. We've got a lot of people joining right now. So if you guys just give me a few minutes to allow people to join, I think I'm going to start in about 5 minutes. So if you need to get water or you need to use the restroom, I'll start the full presentation in just a few minutes. Yes, the meeting will be recorded, and yes, all right, awesome. Got people wearing adult diapers to not miss any part of this. That's great. Thanks everybody for your commitment. Awesome. Thanks everybody. I'm excited. Yeah, we do. There is some really good information I'm sharing. So my plan here is that we're going to do these once a month. I am going to get some suggestions from the audience on experiments to do. I will run the experiments. I'm willing to test other methods using even like other people's software for other tools. I'm willing to test things that people want to see if they work. Yeah, but what I want is to make these at least every month. I might end up doing a little bit more frequency at times, but I just want to be sure people always know every month they'll have access. Every month we'll share what we're finding and learning. We really want to support the community as much as possible. Yeah, so we are 3 minutes in. It looks like I'm not able to co-host my assistant, so I'm going to be having to admit people during this meeting, but that's okay. We'll just roll with it. I'm actually just kind of letting her know that's the case because she's in the meeting right now. Okay, so all right, so first of all, before we jump into the rest of it, I just want to give oh yeah, if I was I not on screen? I just want to give everybody the kind of rundown on core campaign performance, because if you have limited time, I want you to know how to deal with that, because I work with a lot of people through these things. So in any campaigns that you have right now, if they're volatile, if you're not seeing good performance, one thing that I have seen happening, and this does change over time, is how sensitive Google is to traffic. Essentially can change over time. There's a number of reasons why. So the September update I posted in the software for people that saw increased volatility to decrease their traffic. What I'll be going over today is showing how knowledge graph affects how much traffic you can send and how volatile that makes campaigns. So we actually had really good success with the September update. People with weak profiles, like weak brand depth, they saw more volatility after that update. cutting back traffic was an immediate boost in rankings. A lot of campaigns actually ended up working even better than before the update, but the update was increasing the magnitude of knowledge graph as a signal. So that's something just like for people to be aware of, is that what we're trying to do, and sometimes this means like really like pulling back quite a bit of traffic. So if you're seeing volatility, if you don't like the way that your campaigns are working, the things to do, and I'll make a guide for this, that, and I'll put it into the help document. There's the user guide in Agency Assassin. That user guide is really, really good. The things that you want to make sure you're always doing are branded traffic is the number one. On listings with an address shown. For right now, we're going to be doing driving directions. What we found in a recent experiment that we're going to cover in the presentation is that just interactivity, just time on the GPP, which is what driving directions do, since it's not a click-through event, those increase listing trust. So we're going to go through some of that in the presentation. So again, if you have poor performance, what you want to do is you're going to decrease, especially your if you have really, really low performing keywords, you're going to decide if you really need them and potentially remove some of them. You're going to decrease some traffic. You're going to increase the amount of branded traffic, and then driving directions are something to do. I was recommending like very high volume driving directions. I am just starting to see those not work as well. So those worked really well for the last 2 months. Instead of doing 10 a day, I mean, I might generally recommend 5 to 7 a day, but I'm actually seeing that even those are there's some sensitivity. So we're going to be adding a listing activity function. It's something that will work kind of like driving directions. It's just going to be people browsing, but it won't be a CTR event. But for now, if your campaigns aren't performing, increase branded traffic. That's the first thing you should try, is increase branded traffic. Second thing you should try is decreasing the amount of click-throughs you're doing. And then the last thing would be add driving directions, even on listings that aren't necessarily in an industry that you would have people driving to the business. Google may be fixing that right now, but it has been working really well, which is what I'm going to show today. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started on the presentation. I'm going to open up my chat. It is recorded. This is recorded. I don't know if somebody was asking that. So we will be sharing the recording in the user group on Facebook and with active users and email. There is some really, really good information here. So I'm definitely excited about what we're gonna provide to everybody. All right, I'm gonna be closing chat right now. If you want to ask questions while I'm doing my presentation, just put them in chat. I'm not going to respond to them until after I'm done with the presentation piece, because I want to get through it. The last time I did this presentation was 45 minutes and I was moving pretty fast. So after the presentation, we'll do Q&A, and then I'll take some suggestions on some experiments that we can start doing. I'll do a bunch of experiments. We'll do high traffic, low traffic. We'll do all pro list, all driving directions. We'll do lots of stuff. So we'll come up with at least a number of experiments to do, and then we'll share those results at our next meeting, which will be about 1 month from now, the beginning of March. So, okay, all right, everybody. Thank you, by the way, everybody, for joining. I'm so excited to have so many people here. That really, really is awesome. So, thank you for coming, everyone. Okay, all right. So we're getting started. All right, so 2025. The thing that you're going to see. This is the trend. I'm going to show you the trend. This is where SEO is going. This is why SEO is hard. We're going to go through some history. And that history involves how we got here where SEO looks the way that it does. The biggest thing that's going on in SEO today is people are saying, things I'm doing aren't working. I keep doing stuff like this used to work, this doesn't now. Or I try something and it works sometimes, it doesn't work other times. I will tell you, this presentation will explain why. All right, so first of all, to give you some history on Knowledge Graph. Knowledge Graph first was what was like the project started with RankBrain in 2015. And that was when Google began using machine learning to try to draw context from web pages. And I know that we're talking about maps, but you're going to see how big of a role this plays. So when Google started to use machine learning, what they do is read pages and try to understand like what information is on this page. This is what Knowledge Graph is. Knowledge Graph is a set of entities and relationships that express, well, they express knowledge for Google in a way that they can use. Now Google previously was just an index of indexes, a very fast, very optimized index of indexes. It was indexes of keywords, indexes of pages, indexes of links, and then indexing and aggregating those into a value to see if they should show something at the top of search results. Historically, that is how Google worked, index of indexes. Now, 2018, actually before the 2020 update, was the first time that Google used machine learning to look at ranking factors. And they did that with the Hummingbird update, was when the MEDDIC penalty came out. The MEDDIC penalty was the first time they looked at entities on page. They were looking for relationships between subjects and people and authors. They're trying to use that to determine if medical services and financial services were safe. Why did they do that? Because they used to do manual review on those pages. So even though machine learning was way more expensive in 2018, it was worth it to them to run these searches and these refinements on these sites that were sources of liability for them and really could hurt people. So that was the first instance that knowledge graph was used in a way that was algorithmic rather than manual on high risk pages. Now, as they refined that, the first time that knowledge graph was used in search results on SERP is the December 2020 core update. And if anybody remembers, it was terrible. It was really bad. So what you saw is sites with huge numbers of super interconnected pages. And it didn't matter necessarily that all the information was well supported. You saw mass page sites explode just because they had so much context on page. And this becomes more relevant as we go, because there's a point that I'm pointing towards here about how it is that knowledge graph is being influenced. But to start at this point, it was literally just how many pages of content do you have, and are there links between them, and is there some relationship between that content and pages? And so you saw like movinghelp.com. This is the most successful website from the first core update involving knowledge graph. And so what you see is large amounts of links on site, with pages on site, with very specific search terms and services. And that was a much bigger ranking factor than it used to be. And the losers were the most authoritative websites on the internet. So you can already tell what Google wants to do. What is Google trying to do? Well, Google wants to own knowledge. Google used to want to index the entire internet. This is the first time you can see that Google no longer wants to index the internet. Google now wants to be the largest source of knowledge. And that is a big difference. And that is what knowledge graph is trying to do. That is also why SEO is harder than it used to be. It is not about indexing the internet anymore. So lots of these sites, I just want you to know, I've gone through almost all these sites on all these lists. These sites all recovered exceptionally well. Authority is very, very important still. That said, it's been refined quite a bit. Of these sites, actually, quite a few of these sites are performing pretty well, which I'll be honest, when I looked at this list, I thought they would all get helpful content penalties. Some of them have. I have gone through and found some that got helpful content penalties, but there are actually more that got helpful content penalties that did very well on the 2021 update. So the 2021 core update, this is where we really start to get into approximation of our current environment. So at this point, these sites that were huge winners, all of these had heavily contextual internal links. Dun & Bradstreet has other businesses in the same industry. You see Tumblr with tags. You see Getty Images with related images. New York Post, I was trying to use the Wayback Machine to see, but I'm assuming they did related articles, and they were kind of early to that game. Goodreads did, relate like people with similar interests and like looking at all those different read lists and comparing if you had a lot of similarities with others, and then they would recommend books. So there are ways that they were, using context between these pages to interlink, and this was very, very successful. To make sure I don't have any more participants waiting. No, that's okay. So what you see here is now Google's looking and they're comparing content between pages. There's links between pages. They're comparing how similar are these two entities. But these sites are also very authoritative. So you're seeing authority come in, then you're seeing related entities on page, and you're seeing those be the best winners out of the 2020 core update. So then the losers, you know, of these ones, you see there's some unfortunate site here didn't perform as well, but most of these are very authoritative websites. And I tried to do some Wayback Machine. I'd have to do a little bit more. My thesis here, and I'm sure that I'm going to make an assumption. I'll just make an assumption here. Looking at these, I can assume these are extremely authoritative sites that in the past have not focused on ensuring that the information on their site is well organized and relational, in a way to where internal entity structures are well supported between topics. So these are authority sites. Likely, you know, I'm going to make the assumption AP News was doing top news articles when you go to an article rather than related subjects. I'm going to make that assumption. If somebody wants to go to the Wayback Machine and tell me I'm wrong or I'm right, feel free. But these are assumptions that I'm making about this because it's in line with the other things that we're seeing, especially with the biggest winners at this time. So we have low subject matter coherence on pages getting punished. We have high subject matter coherence getting rewarded. And that's between pages, so it's inner page. So I did an experiment. My thesis, knowledge graph is dominated by entity relationships, heavily weighted towards inner page coherence, signaled heavily through authority. External links are aggregated authority values. So this is the combination of factors we're seeing. This is what's winning on SERPs. I'm going to link it to maps, but this is what's winning on SERPs. So experimental design. Let's build a site with extremely coherent page structure through subject matter with large amounts of offsite authority funneled through subject matter pages. So this experiment was a 100-page site. What we did is we picked a bunch of different content targets. This is shortly after the 2021 updates. This is an early 2022. The 2021 update, I think it was December. In January, we were building this. So what did we do? We built 100 pages that all had related topics. Each pillar, you know, was a major search target. And then to each of these pages, we built 2 news site links. We used Holly Stark's News Network links. And each one of those articles was entity related to every page. So all of our external links had subject matter related to subject matter on an internal page. Every one of our internal pages had subject matter related to the other pages and their core topic. Then we did 125,000 Web2 blogs. We used Money Robot, where we gathered, you know, entity related content. And this is spun text. This is before Spam Brains. This actually worked. And we did 200 T1 links, 25 million tier 2 Web2 links. And this is the result. So this was for a SEO agency in Denver, Colorado, which is one of the most competitive SEO markets. If anybody's ever competed in SEO in Denver, it is wildly competitive. So we went from essentially 0 to 700 traffic on just SEO agency terms practically overnight. Once those pages indexed, so this happened essentially early February or mid-February. So all of our pages were done by late January. The pages were all crawled. We shot up to top rankings against hundreds of agencies overnight. So my thesis here essentially is, yeah, that's it. That's knowledge graph. This hacked knowledge graph. Now, it would be really nice if we still had the lead flow we were getting from this. We were getting 5 to 7 high-end links, excuse me, leads a week. So we were getting corporations and all sorts of stuff. It was pretty awesome. The highest we got for Denver SEO was 5 or 6. But we were number 1 for e-commerce SEO, number 1 for local SEO, number 1 for digital agency, number 1 for Denver digital agency, number 1 for, I can't remember. There's numerous other terms that we got number 1 overnight. So now the problem is you see this drop off at the end there. That would be the first helpful content update. So this is a helpful content penalty. On September 13th, we lost, I don't know, 80% of that traffic, and then we lost most of the rest of it over the following weeks. So what does this mean? Knowledge graph entities are heavily impacted by link authority and other authorities such as page traffic and organic. Now, I'm assuming page traffic because other people who've dealt with all of this stuff, like right now, you know that page traffic validates a lot. Like that's why people talk about pruning pages and all that after helpful content update. What Google's looking for is the utility of content, subject matter importance, and also how that supports other topics on site. The degree that entity relationship is adjusted related to brand entity. All right, so when you want to rank something, you need to create a relationship between a subject matter term and a brand entity. And the degree to which that is affected has to do with how close that page is to the brand entity. So in other words, the more Google can trust that this brand and this subject matter are this close together, the more that correlates with an impact in knowledge graph. And so essentially on page is wildly influential when it comes to knowledge graph entities. And because of that, that's why they created the helpful content update, and that's why the penalty exists. It was created to protect knowledge graph from being manipulated with site content. And this is important because people just need to know the degree to which that is a very powerful vector in influencing the way that Google reads and understands brands. Is that essentially that website is a huge tool. So this is actually showing that it took us, we had a delay of about 30, actually like 30 or 45 days between when that campaign launched and well, actually it ranked about 30 days before it impacted maps. So, and this is something that you used to see. You used to see you'd make changes on the web and then they would eventually get to maps. And so so my thesis is knowledge graph used to actually have a child model for maps, and that child model had a delay. And so you would see these delays. You'd make changes on your website, they wouldn't show up on Google Maps for 30 to 60 days was really common. That changed with the August 1 update 2023. That was also a major readjustment of knowledge graph on maps. Excuse me. So after the August 1st update, I'm pretty sure Google Maps actually uses the exact same knowledge graph that's used on SERPs. They share that model. Likely Google was doing a delay for like testing purposes or making sure that it was safe or whatever. I would imagine, but I'm pretty sure they moved to just using a single model in the August 1st update 2023. So this is what's important. This is the thing that I'm saying matters. So this is a long time CTR campaign. Now this is a year and a half after creating that website that ranked overnight. This is almost a year after a helpful content update penalty removed that website from the internet. So I said the August update, the August update, in my opinion, moved knowledge graph significantly. One, into a live position on maps as a ranking factor, and two, as a larger ranking factor on maps. So this campaign was sitting with an average rank of around 3 for years. With the August 1st update, 2023, it hit a #1 ranking. It maintained that. It's maintained it since then. And so what does this mean? This means knowledge graph is still impacted. This means the helpful content penalty didn't remove those entity relationships. This is supporting the idea that Google knows that knowledge graph is manipulated, and it's a learning model. It's not an unlearning model. This model is meant to adapt. You send it signals, it adapts. It can't not do that, and not only that, it can't back that learning out. So this is probably the biggest secret in SEO right now. Google is so scared about this that they're willing to destroy businesses. Google is so afraid of the fact that these weaknesses in a learning model, as a way for them to assess ranking, in terms of like when it's an index of indexes, they just move stuff from an index. It's not the case anymore. So knowledge graph entities remain affected after HCU penalty. So entity relationships remained altered. And those were promoted with Google Maps as a ranking factor, August 2023 update. And again in September 24. Knowledge graph keeps becoming a bigger and bigger signal. People need to know this. This is the direction of maps, even with the things that I do. So here's my theory. Knowledge graph is a net measurement of trust, identity, and investment into a brand. Why? Because Google needs to know what information to store and what information to discard. These entities and their safeguards on their weights in order to identify which pages will be read, which traffic will be counted, and which listings will gain performance. If they do a helpful content penalty, the one thing you'll notice for the rest of the life of that website is it does not get crawled nearly as much ever again. Google doesn't want to process that data. They want us to avoid the cost. It is the cost. It's also the impact on search results as persistence, but it's also a way to save costs. So out of necessity, Google's favoring first pass and validation of signals in order to optimize their read and storage data. Google has to discard more information than ever, and the amount of information Google has to discard is increasing exponentially. So this is an experiment that I did that is it was meant to be like, I want to look at the worst case situation. This was a painting company. When I started, they only had 2 citations, no website. They had 5 reviews. One got removed probably from a fake Google account. And so it's a competitive area for a competitive term. And I'm just going to send as much traffic as possible on this thing. I was able to get it in about 9 months to a #1 ranking, but it wasn't easy and it's pretty ugly. All right, so here's the things that you got to know about what's going on here. First of all, I sent too much traffic. I started at around 20 clicks per day on a listing with no trust. So the first period here is full filtering. This is what it looks like when Google's filtering all the traffic. So this is when you hear penalties about CTR, there really aren't penalties for CTR. What there is Google's determining whether or not they should filter traffic. When that traffic's filtered, which is what's happening right here, this is a bunch of failed A/B tests. Google filters all the traffic. You notice that high max ranking does not change because that data is not getting into the model. So Google's evaluating past data and it's all getting filtered. So nothing changes. So this is the closest thing to a penalty. The thing is that if this happens on a listing with other existing organic traffic, it will filter their existing traffic. And so the rankings will go down. It's not a penalty, it's just increased filtering, and that results in negative performance. So this was after the August 1st update. We implemented slower than I wish that we had. We were already aware that Google was detecting some of these things, and we had a system design. Getting it out to the market was difficult. And so when we got that out to market, what you see is almost instant spike in rankings here. That's because as soon as we started to detect and evade those tests, the traffic started to get into the model. As soon as the traffic got into the model, rankings were affected instantly. So this is the thing that we're trying to accomplish. We have to get the traffic into the model. And here you see there are these cycles. Well, this first cycle is because this listing has never gotten traffic. It was on page 5 for painting. All of a sudden it's getting, a dozen clicks in a day. Very quickly, Google shuts that down. So they're like, wow, there's no reason why this listing that does not exist, has no website, is getting these huge spikes of traffic. I don't think I was even doing any branded search at this point. So this was no branded search. So if I'd been doing branded search, this chart would probably look dramatically different. So you see these big gaps between these big segments between and these patterns. Those patterns are accumulation over time. So these campaigns are accumulating a lot of traffic. In these periods, it's getting into the model. Google's storing that data. Once they've stored so much data per period, and it's I'm pretty sure it's the monthly analytic cycles. They look at past cycles. How much traffic was it getting? They look at the current cycle. How much traffic is it getting now? They predict how much traffic it's going to get. And once you go past a certain amount, they're like, nope. And part of this has to do with the consistency of it, because traffic surges are actually well supported. We're looking at implementing that into our service to where we're going to do periodic surges. So it'll be like low maintenance traffic, high surge, and we'll look at doing that in a way that makes sense, because Google knows surges of traffic happen. But in these circumstances, I'm just accumulating way too much traffic, 20 clicks a day, on a listing that has very, very low trust. And so there's where the cycles come from. So traffic history is a trust factor on maps. How do you know that? Well, we went to #1 ranking. So the CTR is the ranking signal. That's what actually affects rankings. And you see that with that, the rankings shoot up almost instantly. It is a very powerful ranking signal. But it doesn't matter how much ranking signal you have if Google has determined that it shouldn't be trusted. But over time, this traffic gets into the model more and more, meaning the listing has more trust. So what does that mean? It means traffic history is a trust factor when the traffic is not filtered. So having history helps. It actually helps. Improving that helps. It helps with a lot of things, but it also helps with CTR. So this is a more competitive keyword on that same campaign. And I'll tell you the truth. This campaign is all over the place. Right now it's down it's a very competitive keywords in a competitive area, but this graph is over time. So during this period here, so basically for a long time, this didn't show up at all. This is a more competitive keyword. So painting Denver, significantly more competitive than painting. And what you see is as this listing was maintaining traffic over time, well, first of all, this keyword painting Denver actually disappeared for a while. Why? Because this keyword cost Google money. So very, very bad campaign, way too much traffic. Painting was still going up in ranking, but painting Denver actually stopped ranking at all. And so Google looks per keyword at how much revenue they can make on those keywords, and they're more defensive of, and they scrutinize listings more, the more value there is in a keyword. So in other words, if you need to rank for something that nobody does any PPC on, you're probably going to have no problem doing it with CTR under any circumstances. And the more competitive it is, the more that these other factors matter. And that's just the way that it's going to be, and it's going to increase. Google's going to look for deeper information. That's not going to go away. So what you see here is growth over this period of time. We spike up. That was when I increased traffic. So I increased traffic right here. I got number one. I wanted to rank for my more competitive keywords. I increased from 22 to I think 28 clicks a day. This spiked up and went right back down. And painting actually went down in ranking after that. So that increase in traffic, I mean, it actually worked in the short term. The problem is that it worked in the short term, and then it stopped working. And painting Denver actually, or the other painting keyword actually went down. Right here, I actually cut traffic down to 7 clicks a day. So from 28 clicks a day to 7 clicks a day. Like half of that is branded. And the rankings actually go up on all terms. So 30 clicks a day wasn't doing that well, 7 clicks a day doing better. And a lot of these, the degree of these has to do with the fact that this listing has no trust. So if there are any trust factors, if it was getting reviews, for instance, this chart would look completely different. Almost anything that would increase the amount of trust that Google has on this. But dropping traffic, increase the rankings. And then right here, what I did is I added driving directions. I added driving directions through a driving directions tool. Why? Because we made some changes on it, and I realized that the driving directions basically worked like direct traffic. It's not a click-through event. So the driving directions are just interactivity. And I was looking at the history of this thing, how many click-through events we sent, and I was like, hey, maybe if I add some other interaction, it'll help. Well, it shot it up. It got number one for painting Denver after that. Now, this isn't like a permanent long-term strategy. I did go from 3 to 9 driving directions per day on this campaign, and it did shoot up 20, 30 points. Those changes are, it's going to improve things. Going to 9 searches a day, I actually so the performance on this isn't doing as well now for about a month. It ranked super high. I think that I actually just pulled it back. So one of my experiments right now is I'm actually decreasing that again to see if that works, because I think just sustaining that over time, it's just kind of, I think that the signal becomes washed out because it's too much of the same thing. So we are going to add other interactivity stuff so that we can try to add some wider signals. Driving directions is a little narrow, so we want to build that out a little bit. That's on our plate right now. Okay, so interaction on listings is a trust metric on Google Maps. So we've gone through traffic history as a trust metric, interaction as a trust metric. The other trust metric, which I'm not showing there because I don't know what date I added branded keywords, but branded search is also a trust metric. It's likely just because there's no competition on those keywords. So it's not a Google target, so they don't evaluate it that way. But brand traffic is super vital. And Google does look at distributions between the high ranking and low ranking interactions on listings. So this is another experiment. Now, this is a business that is phenomenally heavy. This is a restaurant that has hundreds of citations. They're on Facebook. They've got reviews on multiple different third-party sites. They have a great, well-structured website. Everything that you want to see from a Google standpoint. And so this one, essentially in a month, we went from the teens to the backpack across numerous different terms. Indian restaurant near me. Now this is a Nepalese restaurant, so it's not optimized for Indian food. So the difficulty here is higher than it appears. Indian restaurant might not be nearly as high of competition, but nothing about the business is optimized for Indian foods. It's Nepalese restaurant. Now the entities are related, but it's not the same term. So this is over 2 months, basically. You see it's linear. You see right here, there is some testing. Google does test the traffic. I added 10 or 15 clicks a day. Google tests it for a little bit, then they just let it go. All of this has to do with entities, knowledge graph, signals. Those signals that are trust metrics completely change the picture. Probably also historical traffic is a huge factor here because the business was already, you know, people are already searching for it. The painting company had no historical traffic. So that was worst case scenario. So entity strength and knowledge graph is a primary trust metric and heavily weights other signals such as CTR events. So this is just the stuff that works right now, and there are lots of people doing lots of experiments on this. Things that are working way better than they have in the past, building strong brand entities. So Jeremy with Press Advantage, he just did an experiment doing schema, brand schema in press releases. It is working on maps. You know, he's, you know, with that schema, you know, he's including other information about the place the business is. It can be subject matter. So the schema is and the links are brand focused, but building the stronger brand entity increases overall trust. So this is just the boring old white hat stuff that you know people used to say worked and didn't work, actually works pretty well right now. Citations, press release, link building, almost all these things. If you can get schema into anything, it's going to help because you're able to, you know, use like the location schema. You can do radiuses, areas, all those things. They're helping Google connect a topic to a place, and that's where it's validating strategies. All of these things, when you combine them with click-through rate, work way better because essentially we're adding trust to the ranking signal that we're sending. So strong content following HTU guidelines. All right, so low entity replication, this is just something that I've observed, is you don't want to have too much similarity between page content. I'm sure a lot of people realize that. High novelty, highly cited pages. In other words, if you have a subject that's super important to a brand, you should find a place for that subject, ideally that's in line with a search target, and you should cite that page from as many places as you can. You should avoid replicating that data, at least in depth. You can reference it and link to it from other internal pages, but you should have like kind of be taking each of these subjects. You should be building them up and referring to them so that you have lots of citations on the site that are improving page experience. So very few orphan pages, all that. This is stuff that people should know at this point, but you know, this is just what helpful content update, what they're looking for those penalties have to do with those things. Helpful content penalty 1 2022 was orphan pages and content crossover. Helpful content update 2 was targeting entity strength. So if your subject matter entities were far more authoritative than your brand entity, like you had a wilderness gear site, and all of the subject matter entity for, you know, for Patagonia backpacks is 10 times higher than for your outdoor gear website, you got removed from the internet, and those penalties aren't going away. Google is coming after anything that is attacking knowledge graph, anything that is costing them money on crawl. And so you need to find ways to do this that are safe. And we're working on Tesla and all this right now. There are honeypot pages with traffic and rank. You know, so if you create like great article content, there are people who are really good at creating content that generates links. That page's links are gold. If you want to rank for other terms, find a way to take that page's content and link to subject matter that's related to your business. You know, link to a area service, you know, page in a way that makes sense from that page. So if you get pages that are getting tons of traffic, the links from that page are going to be super powerful in programming knowledge graph. So just be aware of those things. Then trust is listing interaction. Now with listing interaction, you could do like paid ads. There are a lot of strategies with this. Some are safe, some aren't so safe. But what you're looking to do is just get people onto the listing. Find ways to get them to check it out. You know, customers could do QR codes with, you know, print ads. You know, they could do direct mailers and do QR codes. There's lots of things you could do to improve interaction on that listing. Those things, and the wider that signal is, are going to improve listing trust. All of these things allow ranking factors to work better. So particularly with CTR, it's going to blow that up. Increasing branded search. So CTR on its own works for that. Other marketing QR codes as well. The more that you are establishing this trust signal which Google is looking at as a source of as investment in identity, the cheaper you can do it, the better you can do it, the more consistently you can do it. This is like have process, follow the process, find those weak points, and execute. The more consistent the other methods that you use are gonna work. So, building trust on maps. Again, run branded search, get keywords for your performance data on your GPP. So this is just important on all campaigns on CTR right now. We want to use GPP's performance data as much as possible. Increase interactivity with dwell time and listing activity. So look, PPC ads to the listing do work. You don't want to go super hard at keyword strategies. There's some really interesting and effective tools that people have developed, and a lot of them have had problems with sending negative signals because they do manipulated URLs with like keywords, and that's actually triggering the same protection but doing too much CTR triggers. It's causing the same filtering, so it can push rankings down. So you know, you don't necessarily want to be like, you don't want to do a keyword focus. You don't want to find ways to make sure that's all keyword focused unless you're carefully watching the way that you do that. But you can do it brand focus. You just do a link to the Google Business Profile. You can do stuff like that in ads, and those general situations are going to work well. You can also do you can also share like driving directions in different ways, potentially QR codes with driving directions, stuff like that, that are just going to cause someone to just fire it up and, you know, whatever. You know, I mean, you can do an ad somewhere for a client. You know, hey, you want pizza? We're 1 block away. Scan our QR code and walk over there. Also, that person fires it up into Google Maps. They're live on their Google account and they're walking to the pizza place. That is going to crush for rankings. So these are the kinds of things to be considering outside of what we're able to do. Increase your many keywords over time. Start low and build up. You can follow the help guide, and the software works really well. Age of traffic is a trust factor. Maintain traffic over time as consistently as possible. Now, I'm going to say the thing we're experimenting with are doing traffic surges. I will do experiments on traffic surges this month. I already started one. It looks like it might be working. It is something that you could do if you wanted to like increase your traffic for like a day and then drop it. You know, doing those types of experiments, you might not want to do that on clients. Maybe you let me work on some of those and I can show you what was working until we can get it integrated into the platform. Rate of reviews is the #1 trust factor on maps, period. If your customer is not doing well, you can get them to leave reviews. There is nothing that's more effective in terms of increasing trust than reviews, because each one of those Google accounts is validated. Google looks at activity over years on those Google accounts. They trust those reviews significantly. That trust on the way they trust their review system transmits to the listing. It provides extreme signal. I have a friend who does lots of lead gen properties, and he is able to get reviews the way that he needs to. And he does some very, very risky strategies and is taking over entire cities and areas, just with riskier strategies, but with consistent reviews. Now, most people don't have access to what that would take, but you do have access to your customers. If they can get those reviews consistently, you can be a lot more aggressive with other signals, and it will work effectively. All right, so that's the conclusion of that part. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the share. Okay, so I'm gonna check the chat now. All right, explain HCU versus knowledge graph more so we can know what we need to do with better quality content. Okay, so all right, so helpful content penalty is basically meant to prevent you from using your on-page content to directly program knowledge graph. So knowledge graph is so impressionable on site. Knowledge graph is so impressionable from those internal links on your website, which is that's what I was showing in terms of the experiment and the results. That helpful content update is looking for strategies that are using internal like page spam essentially. Yeah, so essentially, you know, you said explain the HCU versus knowledge graph more. So we need to do this, but with better quality content. I mean, it's not even better quality content. It's actually just about a structure that doesn't appear to Google to be page spam. It's also about brand entity being held at the top. and that's since the second helpful content penalty. So in other words, I mean, I know that they say helpful but it's about content being helpful. I think it's about entities being clear, and I guess I did cover some of this after you asked that question. It's about entities being clear and distinct and well supported. So it's like having a well cited structure that that isn't very clearly just like manipulating knowledge graphs. So the way I manipulated it was huge numbers of links to pages and then internal links to other related topics. And that worked extremely effectively. So if Google's trying to prevent exactly that, then they're evaluating if those links should exist on pages. How I would evaluate if a link should exist on a page is, did that page get traffic? If that page never got traffic and now it's getting links, I would never trust that link ever. So, I mean, first of all, pages should get traffic before they get links. Second of all, content should be purposeful. And the way that Google would determine purposeful is the same thing repeated 1,000 times? Is this information being cited other places on the site? So figured out how to like cover those things effectively so that the links make sense and that they're distinct from one another and they all have a purpose. There's ways to get around this in terms of if you want to post another thing, which is contextually unique content. So in other words, you know, energy rebates on solar is an article you can do every year. You can do energy rebates on solar in 2023, energy rebates on solar in 2025. You can do them after there's changes in energy rebates on solar under the Trump administration. You can find ways that make a piece of content relevant, unique, without like tons of crossover with other things based upon the context. And so determining ways to do that will, I mean, you're theorizing about what Google is looking for here. It's not it's somewhat complex, but you can kind of surmise some of those things. You can look at competitor sites, you can look at the way that they're doing things, look at the top ranking competitors, see how they structure it. Those things are all things you can do. Let's see here, digital media link. Oh, where are the digital media links from UK publications? So I did 2 links. Yeah, so those were, so first of all, don't do this. So I was using Holly Starks at a news network. I was using her news links, they're Google News sites. We did two links from each one of those news sites. Yeah. What about Canadian businesses? Does they work properly for these sites based in Canada? So I'm actually going to be getting Canadian proxies. It is appearing that Google is looking more and more for, at least for data to becoming like at least a percentage of it, or a large percentage of it, to becoming locally. Previously, that wasn't such a big factor, but that might be something that's extending. Canadian data is the most expensive in the world, but I will take care of any Canadian users. So just let me know if you have any campaigns you want us to experiment with Canadian data. Pages should get traffic before they get backlinks or internal links. Yeah, I mean, honestly, yeah, that's kind of the game. Yeah, it's like getting traffic should validate pretty much everything else. So do code citations on PBMs work to move maps? They absolutely do. So this is all right. So there's a couple things that work. Traffic, I mean, traffic to like map embeds works. Map embed, like links with schema in them to map embeds. Creating a page with like an identity on it that has like, you can have ChatGPT has a new O3 mini model that's designed for development, and they have a new deep research model. So you could go and do deep research on a brand, gather every single piece of information about this brand, about the owner, and put it into a schema. And then you create like a cloud site, right? You don't even need to necessarily have a link to their website. Now, you can, if you put an embed on that page, you can traffic to that page, but you can create links, articles, brand, to that page, because that page now is like a brand entity citation. So you're just cataloging everything about that brand. Now you can promote that. And what you're trying to do is get Google to read the context of the information on this page from other contexts, meaning other links. And now what you don't want to do is do like large numbers of spam links to your website. But if you have like ways of creating links, or you have ways of building brand information. So the big one, Jeremy with Press Advantage has an experiment on this. He has a method that's working. We're experimenting with adding CTR both to it and to the embeds. And that'll potentially be a product that we're going to release pretty soon, to where you can just order it and we'll do all of this for you. We're kind of working through that, but essentially what you're doing is you're leveraging the press release pages to add context to the business through schema and the subject matter content. That is working for sure. That one strategy 100% works for ranking on maps with nothing else. And then it also enables CTR to work better. So yeah, so the co-citations do work, PBNs will work, press releases work. For sure, citations are working better than citations stopped working in I don't know, probably around 2018. Citations essentially stopped working, and they started working again in the last 2 years. So citations are definitely effective. So yeah. If you're setting up CTR campaigns in Canada, do you do google.com or google.ca? You know, if your phone's defaulting to do google.com, I would do google.com. Honestly. Yeah, it's probably, and to be honest, yeah, if users are just using google.com, which I would imagine Canadian users do, then we should just be using google.com. That's actually a good observation. Yeah, so yep. Okay, any more questions? Okay, yeah, we've got another user saying CanadianHeuses.com. Okay, so that's good to know. That actually could be a big factor. Yep, okay. Got it, yep. So that makes sense. We do want to follow what most users are doing with all signals we send. We're trying to blend in. Any more questions from anybody? Okay, so let's see here. Do you have a history of a number of clicks on your system that works for a specific niche? The problem is it doesn't matter what the niche is. It's about the listing. So the number one way that that Google's analyzing traffic is based upon that one listing. So like if you think about it, how does a business go from unpopular to popular typically, and what is Google looking for in traffic? You know, a radio ad happens, you know, someone starts a new business and they launch an ad and they get 50 searches in a day. This is something we want to start mimicking. But if the listing just suddenly starts getting 100 clicks for plumber Denver and they rank position 50, there's no doubt in their mind that is not good. People asking about recording. Yes, we'll be sending the recording to our subscribers. And we'll be sharing it in the user group. Okay, so what I was saying, so really it's about historical. Google's looking for natural patterns. So there's no real number. There are companies that have a huge monopoly on search volume, meaning that they get almost all the search. That just happens. So Google allows for that to exist. They don't have any problem with that. So there's not a maximum, but if you're not getting any traffic, they know that if that changes. So there's really not a historical number, but the method is you increase traffic till it gets volatile. You experiment with different levels until it won't take anymore. And then that's how much that listing can handle, because knowledge graph is such a big factor that business to business, the amount of CTR can handle is completely different. So the only real way to find out how much traffic a listing can have is to increase until you send too much. That is the only way to test it. So it's unfortunate, but that's the way that it is. Honestly, you see the volatility pretty quick. So if you are increasing, it'll get volatile in a few days. Although actually, so there's 2 levels of volatility you can hit. All right. One level of volatility is your 1-day limit, which is like Google just immediately recognizes that's too much. And that's like a short term. There's a short-term limit, which is just like, oh, this is too much. Then there's the monthly period limit. So you can get volatility either right after you put the settings in, 2 to 3 days. You could also get the volatility sometime over a 1-month period because it's increased too much. There's probably a difference in how both of them react, but both of them are fixed the same way. You just decrease traffic. And anytime that you hit volatility, you just decrease traffic. You just don't want to do wait. So the only really bad thing you can do, if you have a long-term sustained CTR campaign, is try something super risky after building up to 50 clicks a day. Like you try to send traffic in a new city and you're already sending 50 clicks a day into the other city. that can set off some flags if they start getting tons of low ranking traffic all of a sudden. It can increase the risk profiles or decrease the trust of that profile. And that means you have to scale your traffic way down and build it back up. That can happen. So that's the only way that you can really kind of like kick a campaign in the nuts, is basically the campaigns that have been running high traffic for a long time. If you do something risky, that's not really something you want to do. If I'm getting rankings to the point where I'm doing high traffic on a campaign, I do not mess with it. That is where it lives. I'm going to find other ways to rank that business besides CTR, because if you get it up there, it's higher risk the more traffic you're sending. If you're getting results out of high risk, I don't push the envelope. So, all right, any more questions? If the business is an SAB, do we have drive directions as well? So we are adding listing interactions soon for SABs. Drive directions do not work currently. We're going to add a service though. It's not a huge lift. It is on our like immediate radar, so we can add more activity on the listings besides CTR events. So we are looking at that right now. I don't have a timeline for you. I might be able to give you one next month on the next webinar. We're about to push out 2 big changes. One of them is AI driven maps. So I'm excited to show everybody that. That's very, very close. Those will cut all your map shapes out for you automatically. And then the next one is, do you recommend a CTR service for web pages or a way to send traffic to web pages? So the web pages that you want to send traffic to, honestly, are with map embeds or driver directions or other iframes or some way of getting that traffic back to Google. If you're going to do that, I've been experimenting with Awesome Traffic Bot. It does work. It works well. The experiments I'm doing, I'm hoping to integrate into product offerings soon, because they do seem to help quite a bit. Is it worth choosing keywords with low search volumes? Yeah, absolutely. So one strategy that's actually working really well is to put all of your long tail keywords. If you go to your performance data, take that entire set of keywords, throw them into a long tail category, run just a few searches a day on it, something very, very small. Sending traffic to those keywords, it's small amounts. So if you have 100 keywords and you put it into long tail and you send 3 searches a day, it's only going to search 3 of those keywords a day. So on average, those only get 1 search every 33 days. So it's very, very, very low search volume per keyword. And it's very, very high diversity. That is actually a good strategy. We are rebuilding our campaign builder, and we're going to have people just paste in that list of keywords, and we're going to parse it all automatically for you based upon search volumes, and build the campaign. And that's one of the things that we're going to integrate into it at that point. But if you have any campaigns that are kind of stubborn or they've been running a long time, you want to try to give them some more juice, go pick all your long tail keywords, throw them into a long tail keyword category, and do just a small amount of traffic. What is the best way to choose these keywords? Go to the GPB profile, go to the performance data. Here, I can show you that right here. So this is what it looks like. So when you go to when you find the business in Google, you search and you get your Google business profile. Oops, I'm not sharing my screen. I should probably share my screen. Okay, so so when you click expand, you have see more on this on this from your Google business profile. It'll give you all the keywords that you have impressions for. The way that I mean, I'll be honest, for long tail, I just put everything in. I mean, you can definitely prefer like keywords related to the keyword you want to rank, and that should work great. I've just put everything in before, and it works well. So you get you're gonna do some weird searches and interactions on the listing. I think a small amount of weird interactions like that might actually be good. So I'll just copy that entire thing for long tail. For a campaign that has 5 to 10 genuine reviews, an industry where reviews are difficult to receive, does consistency of new reviews play a role in how much we can increase CTR traffic without volatility? It's so unfortunately, consistency of new reviews is the role you have to that does that. So historical reviews have almost no impact on that. So it's really rate of reviews that is the big signal in terms of like decrease in CTR volatility. Decrease in CTR volatility also means you can do more CTR. Those two things come together. So I mean, if you get one, you get the other. So anything that decreases volatility increases the amount of CTR you do. So yeah, so rate of reviews absolutely crushes. If you got any creative ideas you can pipe out to your customers to double their review count, it's gonna make your campaigns, your CTR campaigns smash. It works crazy fast. It's really, really effective. Okay. All right. So the end of this. All right. So I'm gonna be doing some experiments this month. Essentially, I'm gonna come up with it. I'll announce it in the Facebook group, the experiments that I'm doing. If you come up with experiments you want to see, please hit the Facebook group. I would appreciate that. I've got one more question I'm going to answer, and then I'm going to cut it off. For the remodeling industry, I need to expand my area of interest from 5 to 7 to 10. Should I push a campaign that a 7-mile radius? Does that mean it's not dangerous to? I mean, you know, expanding your area from 5 to 7 to 10, just like to be clear, expanding an area from 5 to 10 is going from 25 square miles to 100 square miles. It is like at the most basic level 4 times harder. In addition to that, the number one ranking factor on maps is proximity. So like, I mean, the reality of trying to do something like that, I would not run a business on that. I would not run a business on I'm going to take you from 5 to 10 miles. The reason why is because the amount of effort increases exponentially over distance. So your difficulty isn't just twice as hard to get to 10. It might be 4 times or 10 times harder to get to 10 as it is to get to 5. Now, I'm not saying you can't make some gains there, but I would not set like customer expectations there typically. Now, there are things that probably work as well as CTR to do it, but the worse that you rank, the more low ranking a keyword is, the more when you send traffic, the faster that sets off alarm bells. So, I mean, you just got to understand that you're weighing these two different things. If you're going to run a campaign and you want to see if you can hit another city, you use another keyword category, and you send a small amount of traffic, it's not going to hurt your campaign. But if you go really, really aggressive and you try to do 10 different keywords, which means, you know, there might be 10 different keywords in there that rank position 60, we're going to rate limit each keyword, but you're still going to be trying to do it across 10. So that means you're getting multiple clicks at position 60 per day. So I would do either a limited number of keywords or extremely limited traffic. If you're going to do 5 keywords, fine, do 5 keywords 10 miles away, put them in 1 keyword category, do 1 search per day. So it's only picking each one of those keywords every few days. They're going to be rate limited as well. So you're only going to get a click every, you know, you might get a click every day at that position. You might not. But yeah, it is, it's, I mean, like in general, what you want to do if you want to try and increase that range is, you know, you can set up a new search area, do very, very low search and turn on rank tracking and start to see how well you rank in that area. If it's under 20, 30, you really can't, you can only send a tiny amount of traffic there. So if you go really, really aggressive, it's going to set off alarm bells. And if that campaign is established in high traffic, if you're up over 20 or 30 clicks a day already to get that 5-mile range, you're putting the results you already have in jeopardy if you try to push it too far, which is unfortunate. But one thing you do is get that rate of reviews way up. You can go shoot for anything you want. The more trust we have, the more we can do. Okay, all right. So again, if you guys want any experiments, you want me to test any settings in the software, you want to see what happens. If you do my experiments, by the way, if I do an experiment and somebody's business goes down in ranking, I will improve the ranking until they're at or above where they're ranking before. I will not leave any. If we do an experiment, it doesn't work, and I pick some poor random person, I will fix it and more. So, but feel free to make suggestions in the Agency Assassin user group. Hit us up. Love to get feedback about this event. Really appreciate everybody coming here. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up right now, but thank you everybody for coming.